18 current members of the Board of Aldermen are leaving, either retiring or losing their elections, but 4 new members-elect, are joining the board. One of them joins me now. Alisha Sonnier is on the record. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
You're one of just a handful of candidates to enjoy support from both Megan Green and Mayor Jones. What did they want from you in exchange for their political support?
They didn't really want anything from me, to be honest with you. You know, I come from the Board of Education, so in my case, I've had the joy of working with them and doing projects with them before. I was also, the political director for Megan's President Board of Aldermen race. They've seen me advocate for policies. They've seen me advocate for children and families, and really what they wanted from me was to win and make a commitment to stay committed to the people.
A lot of people are looking to see what direction this new board might take. A smaller board, twice the size and twice as many constituents in each ward from now on. A lot of people have talked about just city services, but you laid out a number of different ideas as you campaigned for this position, including giving all city workers a raise. Does that include police?
Yes, city workers are a part of that, so absolutely. And I know that they just completed negotiations and did receive a raise.
You want to go higher?
Well, so when we started campaigning, it was before that happened, so I didn't have any of that information. Obviously, all of those negotiations are between the mayor and personnel and the police, so you wouldn't be aware of that. I think we've got to make sure that there's a minimum set, and we still have city workers that are standing in line for utility assistance, that are having to go to food, toy drives around Christmas. So I want us to focus on the city workers that are making, wages under poverty and leaving them struggling for expenses first.
And certainly there are members of the board and other city advocates who suggest that just by raising wages, you'll attract more workers to all those unfilled jobs. The labor market has a lot of unfilled openings now. You also called for ending cash bond. I understand the economic justice arguments there, that a rich, dangerous person shouldn't be able to buy their way out onto the streets while a poor, innocent person is trapped in jail and without a way to pay their way out. But setting that aside for a second, how does the city accomplish that in a red state where cash bond is enshrined in state law? How do you do that?
I think there's a lot of different ways and mechanisms to get there. Of course, those conversations will have to be with the prosecutor's office and will have to be a part of our overall budget analysis. I just think first and foremost, as a city and as leaders, we have to commit to the fact that there shouldn't be a price on freedom. And so whatever we have to do to make sure that that is not what's keeping folks in jail and keeping people away from their family, and then being honest about what that produces. If you are in jail, you're unable to call your boss, you're going to miss time away from work, you may be missing time away from classes. And so, there's multiple mechanisms to get there. And I think just staying grounded in the principle and the idea that I believe that there should not be a price for freedom is first and foremost in that.
It sounds like you're suggesting that some sort of collaboration or communication between the board and the prosecutor's office, the circuit attorney's office, could accomplish this with or without a statutory change in Jefferson City. Do I read that correctly?
That would be my hope.
What level of interest would you have in bringing Kim Gardner before the board, whether it's on some committee level or otherwise? Usually this happens during the budget process, but do you think the city deserves to hear more in terms of answers from the circuit attorney on how her office has operated recently?
I think her office is an independent branch, and a lot of this, it has to be up to her and up to her autonomy, and I want to make sure I'm giving her the respect that she should get as the prosecutor's office. But we do, as all elected officials, serve the same people, and so in whatever way she's interested in coming, if she wants to come to a town hall that I might host, if she wants to come to a Board of Aldermen meeting, I root for that. In whatever way she wants to respond, I'm an advocate for that.
Your campaign website also says you want to eradicate poverty, and I don't know many people that enjoy poverty, but you've pitched this idea of universal guaranteed income. The city has that pilot program now where roughly 440 families in the city who earn $37,000 or less, somewhere in that ballpark, they get $500 a month for a period of 18 months. The price tag on a program that size is $5 million. If the city was to pay everybody in the city $500 that was at poverty level, that would be $350 million a year. We all know the pandemic money is running out soon-ish. How do you do all this, and where does the money come from?
It's going to take a multifaceted approach, and so it won't be a universal basic income alone that lets it happen. One of the things I talk about often is the relationship between crime and poverty. So I think one of the things we have to do is really assess the cost of what it costs you when we have poverty. It costs you to replace stolen vehicles. It costs you to replace total vehicles. It costs you to replace the things that go missing. And so even though a universal basic income, funding it at the full level for everyone is expensive, but we don't don't have to do it all at once. Just like the pilot takes a section of our population and it's actually using, families that are within St. Louis public schools. So I'm very happy about that as a previous Board of Education member. But I think that's sort of a model. Get some folks in it, pilot it for a couple of months, connect them to wraparound services, get those folks in a position where they have jobs and are able to make their own sources, and then transition other people in.
Is the idea that if there's no poverty, there would be no crime?
I think the idea is that if there is no poverty, there are people that are not in a situation of generational crime, and that there are people who have other options where they're not having to just resort to crime as a survival mechanism.
It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds with this change in the board. There's going to be some different voices there, and some of the voices that had opposed the guaranteed basic income are no longer there. Joe Vaccaro, one of them, who lost his election on Tuesday night. Quickly, you said that development projects in the city that receive public benefits should provide, let me say that again, that receive public subsidies should provide public benefit. That was for what part of your campaign platform. Aren't good paying jobs a public benefit?
They can be, but again, that takes up to the city to set that standard. We've certainly had development projects where there haven't been good wages paid, where there's been encouragement to not have unions. So that can certainly be a part of the conversation, but what I'm really advocating for is that when we're having these development deals and it is a business agreement, that is something that's in the interest of the company, but is also in the interest of the people of St. Louis.
So you want to see X number or minimum number of jobs brought to the city, or something else, a labor peace agreement?
I want to, talk about each piece on a basis. There are some pieces that the project within itself is a service to the community. In the 7th Ward, we have developers that solely work on meeting the gap that the federal government doesn't meet when they're doing affordable housing projects. That's a public good. But certainly if you're a project where it's more of a luxury service, you may need to look into some kind of cash payment or invest into affordable housing fund in order for that project to serve some kind of public good.
At legislative bodies, we've all heard of the Blue Ribbon Commission. You've got something different, a red tape commission. Not a blue ribbon, but a red tape. Where is the red tape in city government, and how do you cut it out?
So red tape, in the 7th Ward, we have a booming economy that is led mostly by small, local owned businesses of folks who live right within our ward and certainly right here within St. Louis. And when I've been talking to these business owners, they tell me that one of my challenges is whether or not I have a staff of 50 or a staff of 5, whether or not I have a revenue of 50 million or 5 million, the processes that I have to go through are the same. So what I'm advocating for with this red tape commission is we bring together a group of small business owners or smaller level developers, and we have a conversation about how do we make it so that you are able to navigate the processes and criteria that we have in place without having so much red tape and bureaucracy.
Bureaucratic bloat or obstacles. It's a tongue twister. All right, Alisha Sonnier, it sounds to me like there's some interesting reporting to do along those lines. We look forward to hearing from you more in the future. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.